Greetings. Today's talk focuses on primarily three areas. The first is that we actually saw the Nikola truck move. The second, and we wanted to review this relative to the challenges that are in the near future for the company. The second thing we take a look at today is there's another page called Teslanomics by Ben Sullins. We kind of take a look at what's going on at this channel and sort of contrast it with the process that we utilize as we're covering the Tesla and electric vehicle story. Then the third thing we look at today is Elon Musk's tweet and recommendation that you not go beyond 90% charge on a regular basis, and kind of review this and some of the implications of him making this suggestion. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. I also wanted to note we kind of have a wild animal and what's going on, and so I've chosen to frame in this way so we can pick up some of the wildlife here at our shooting location that I thought you guys might find interesting and that was referenced in another show. So I also wanted to note that we're going to start having our content begin on Saturday for subscribers only. So please note that we plan to, on a weekly basis, have subscriber-only content that's available for our viewers. We also usually mention we can see when you're saying hello. We tend to avoid saying anything until the end of the show to avoid messing up how it flows for those that don't watch it while it's live. But we do welcome your questions, and my goal is to add those at the end. So if you see me stutter a little bit, it might be the fact that I want to make sure I log the question or comment that was made so that we can field that question at the end of the show. So I wanted to thank you for joining us. Just a shout out to our subscribers and Patreon supporters. We appreciate your support. The first part of our show today is that I can honestly say that with my own eyes, I saw the Nikola truck move in a conference room setting. And so we're at the second day of the Nikola introduction, and it was stated that what's going to happen is they're going to have some track time with those vehicles that's coming up. And, you know, my argument to this is I'll take my hat off. Yeah, that's true. It's a very good point. Let's try to adjust that. Yeah, so thanks for the comment, Jerry. So what's going on right now is that Nikola just introduced their truck. They're in their second day of Nikola World, and we noticed that there was a lot of interest that showed up based on us covering the fact that we thought the truck was a fraud for many reasons. Today we've elected to cover the problems Nikola has with people like Daimler, Toyota, as well as Tesla when we enter the electric space. Why there's a problem is that, first of all, Daimler is the most important problem that Nikola has. Based on Daimler having 40% market share of trucks globally, in the United States with Freightliner it might be closer to 50%, there's a high likelihood the current truck fleet that Nikola is starting with, the Budweiser trucks, are actually, I think they're international, but I wouldn't be surprised if a decent portion of their fleet is a Freightliner operation, which is one of the brands from Nikola. So I wanted to mention this to you because what's actually going on is that anytime you have a truck, there are all kinds of spare parts that the manufacturer or the buyer of those trucks has to stock. If they have enough trucks, it makes sense to have their own repair facilities. And this includes everything from bumpers to lights to, in the case of battery trucks, batteries. But you know, in ICE vehicles, you basically have all manner of gear that needs to be managed, and the expertise that's developed with it is part of the reason why people tend to stay with the same company all the time. So in this case, it's our belief that Nikola has a big problem with Daimler. the problem has many layers. One layer problem with Daimler is existing relationships with these large companies that are using Daimler products, primarily Freightliner. The second problem with Daimler is the fact that Daimler has now started delivery, at least in Los Angeles, the United States, but also in Germany and in Europe, of everything from the e-Canter, Class 6 vehicles to Class 7 vehicles from Freightliner to the Port of Los Angeles, to preparation for the Class 8 vehicles once battery weight and price can be lowered. So what's interesting is that for at least the battery electric side of the house, Daimler has economies of scale and existing relationships that allow them to source and buy out any entities that might provide at-scale battery and other resources. And let's forget about the fact also that Daimler and Robert Bosch, which is one of the key suppliers of motors to Nikola, have a perhaps 50 to 100-year long working relationship, which allows Daimler to screw up, the flow of products coming from Bosch into Nikola if they so choose to slow down the growth of Nikola. So, at any rate, the long-winded statement is to say here is that the relationship between Daimler and Nikola is zero at this point, and it shouldn't be very large going forward because they're competing manufacturers. The issue, though, is that if you're a manufacturing firm manufacturing a part and you have to make the decision, do you ship that part, be it a battery or whatever, to Daimler, or do you ship it to Nikola? Given that Nikola hasn't actually built their plant yet and ready to produce products, this therefore means that Daimler really wins the opportunity to set up supply chain from that entity. The next problem that pops up is time to market. So Nikola still has an issue with building a factory and then getting product out of that factory. And as we all know, even in the case of Tesla, the window is closing on the ability of competitors to maintain their competitiveness given the number of entities, particularly European entities, that are compelled right now to make a dent in this space. So basically, there's a huge nightmare lurking. I'm just focusing on what's happening with Daimler, but there are a large number of Scandia, VW's truck division, Volvo has introduced the electric garbage truck. There are countless numbers of existing suppliers to these truck solution customers that Nikola has to deal with, and they're one delay in getting product to market. By the way, let's think about this in terms of Nikola's plant. After a year, Nikola has announced that it's acquired land and ready to build a factory. In the case of Tesla, not only have they acquired the land to build a factory in China, but the first phase of the factory will be done, and that whole process took 120 days. They're now starting to equip that factory, which is going to take another 2 to 3 months. But in a 6-month window, we're going from zero to production of cars by Tesla in China. So contrast this against the timelines that Nikola is working with, and you can see why it's our feeling that Nikola has some big time problems in terms of time to market, and those delays in times to market are impacted by a lot of variables, but it really calls into question their viability given the size and complexity of the competitors that they're entering to battle against. The next sort of entity that I wanted to take a quick peek at is what's going on with Toyota. As you all know, Toyota has been a fuel cell oriented company for the last 20 years. I mean, as Tesla was starting up in the early 2000s, that's when Toyota was sort of developing and introducing their fuel cell products. And those fuel cell products are now being tested in places like the Port of Los Angeles. Obviously, I would say it's being tested in Japan in a similar setting. And the issue that comes up to mind to me is the only difference between Toyota and what's going on at Nikola is Toyota actually hasn't built the large number of fueling facilities to go with the trucks, but it's no doubt in my mind that Toyota is 5 years ahead of Nikola when it comes to hydrogen truck solutions, and they actually have prototypes that are being driven by customers and the company, and have been in that situation for the last 2 or 3 years. And so I'm kind of shocked, amazed to see, to the extent to which there's a discussion of the market going to Nikola in that regard, given that you have such a well-regarded and well-funded entity like Toyota that's delivering a hydrogen product. So I have to say hats off to Nikola that they have a truck that's moving, and I look forward to getting a chance to commentate on what's going on with the track vehicle and whether or not it performs as advertised, etc. The next thing we wanted to move off into is I want to move on to Elon Musk's discussion of the fact that 90% charging in general should be the norm, and then if you're really desperate for the extra mileage, go to the 100%, but it starts to impact regenerative braking and other issues relative to the car. One of the things that's happening over time is by using Facebook pages as well as other resources of friends that own and other owners, there are little details that come out on best practices on software and hardware, as we've seen in the past, but in this case, Tesla's cars. Elon put out this 90% charge recommendation because regenerative braking is said to, in some cases, add as much as 30% more range to vehicles. And so I think that it's great to hear that there's that larger number from regenerative braking that's added, but we also have to think about the fact that there are optimization processes relative to the fact that you're now dealing in an electric and a battery world. And so it's a note of caution to those of you who tend to charge fully and roll out in that fashion that, the company / Elon is recommending a 90% charge versus 100% on your vehicle. The individual who exchanged tweets with Tesla / Elon Musk was actually pointing out that her commute requires pretty much all the mileage that the full charge requires, and she is concerned about running out of juice on the way to or from work. And so, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but the other suggestion that's come from several people is the batteries really don't prefer that 100% charge. Even a 95% charge is adequate. So I just wanted to highlight that to you guys. Please note, we put a show on from a guy named Dave Duff, who's also a Tesla executive, and his recommendation for charging is for a charging range of between 20 and 80 or 85% charge to optimize the length and life of your battery. So this is another thing to think about. One of my longest running Tesla owner friends, Damien, is on his second. He's on a Model 3 after Model S number 5000, and he sort of keeps it in that 70% range on the top end. And then if it's longer trips, we'll push it up to 90 or 95%. But there is a way in which cycling the batteries comfortably, peacefully, can actually extend the life and reduce the amount of battery degradation and give you better performance from the batteries. And all these details are being developed over time, so these might be experiments that as an owner or a potential owner, you might want to think about in the back of your mind. The final thing that we wanted to dive into officially today is a whole discussion of what's going on with Teslanomics and Ben Sullins. Now, Teslanomics, with 125,000 subscribers, is the largest entity in our space in terms of number of people subscribing and watching the show. And congratulations to him for both his dedicated work over time. He's actually done some really interesting creative stuff. For example, when Elon was shown to have to sleep on the floor or on a very tiny couch on a 60-minute interview, Ben had a GoFundMe campaign for Elon, and actually bought a couch that was a nice sleeper and had it delivered to the Tesla factory for Elon Musk to have some place to sleep when he was doing all-nighters at Tesla to get production rolling. So I kind of bring this up because there's been some good video produced. There's also been some creative ways to sort of add value. And Tesla has actually responded. The Teslanomics / Sullins is one of the folks that's being given a free $250,000 Roadster 2. And so congratulations to him again. I actually watched the show when it was announced that he had gotten the car, and he informed us that we had all become the owner of the car based on our viewership, helping him to get that gift. One of the challenges of autojournalism, and we've seen it at our channel and you'll see it again, is just the fact that on one hand you want to cover the company that you're covering or the industry you're covering well, but the other question that comes up is what gifts do you take while maintaining your anonymity? And as you'll notice, when we do shows, we actually do shows that are designed to provide good information that helps the viewer understand better what's going on with the company and products. And we're also open to making statements that may not be hugely complimentary if we feel it's in the best interest of the viewer to see it. So, for example, we actually lost some subscribers as well as Patreon support when we pointed out that the batteries were pretty heavy and affecting the amount of freight that could be hauled by the truck. So we know that there's a risk of perhaps losing folks. The goal isn't to lose subscribers by saying something mean or not truthful. It's to use, regular logic to identify areas to be worked upon. And so one of the challenges for certain channels is you can't really say anything that's not going to make Elon happy, because otherwise he might take your car away. So we don't have a car for him to take away. So we can be truthful and supportive of the needs of the industry as well as users, and do a good job of providing good quality news without necessarily having to limit what we say because we're restricted because we may not get that car. So I wanted to sort of highlight that to you. Wanted to at this point say hello to our friends Jerry and our friends from Chile and other places that chose to join us on our live feed today. That is much appreciated. We have Tesla earnings that are soon to come based on the production numbers we just saw, and we look forward to having some commentary on that. As we get into our first show on Saturday, that's subscribers only, I wanted to note to you that our first show is kind of focused on some things we learned at the Fremont plant, and that we have to somewhat paraphrase because one of the rules is, thanks for the comment, Jerry. I wanted to note that there's this weird, interesting thing happening, which is nobody's really done it yet, but there's a whole idea called best practices. So when you have a car or piece of equipment or whatever it may be, over time, people start to figure out, oh, this works or this doesn't work. And you have all these best practices going on. And so a lot of the reviewers and things that you see long-term allow users to better use their product or service based on information that they gain. So one example of how we operate, and we believe that we had some influence on this, was the fact that the break-ins that were happening at the rear of the Model 3, we were part of highlighting the fact that this was a problem and that the software was rewritten to address the problem on behalf of consumers. When we highlighted the problem, our goal was there was an issue that one of our board member users was having, and there was a need to solve it because thieves had figured out that there was this weakness or vulnerability to the car. So it was fixed, and I think that I have a deposit in for my Model 3, but have not ordered it. But thank you very much for your comment. Alejandro, thank you for your comment there. You're right. Ben had the number of subscribers or the number of buyers that he had, I believe, influenced him getting the free car. So during that period, yeah, absolutely, the free car was attached to that. So I wanted to highlight the fact that as we highlight issues that the car is having and they can be repaired by the company actually is making move to actually handle them, which means, everyone gets a better car based on the information we're providing. So I just wanted to note to you that you guys might think that we're being evil or mean to Elon or something like that. Not the case at all. Our goal is to have the entire community do better by the information we put out, etc. I would agree, Jerry. I'm definitely biased towards Tesla. I have to admit, I'm also biased towards making sure users have a good user experience with the vehicle. So that's the other bias that we definitely have, and I wanted to note that to you guys as well. So, we're getting ready to wind down our show today. If there are any questions you'd like us to answer, I'm happy to do so as we do so. I have to admit that as I'm seeing what's going on at Audi and Daimler, etc., there's actually a question mark that's kind of lurking issue right now, and that is weight of Tesla. So there's a question that's out there, and that is that in the case of the LG battery, there's an interesting phenomenon that's happening, which is LG, when they made their latest iteration of their battery, they're actually doing 430 pouches, and then those pouches have material in them that obviously charges and discharges. And from what we can tell, they're getting about 200 miles of range from that, and it's said to be superchargeable. In the case of Tesla, we're looking at good comments you guys have going there. Go for it regarding, cost per 100 miles for electricity. It is definitely different from different places, etc. So what I wanted to get into here is just the fact that there's this experiment going on where LG is of the belief they can do 430 pouches, and those pouches may not be made of metal, therefore they carry less weight, but they're able to get the charging possibility done. Where in the case of Tesla, we're talking, with the X and S, there are 4,500 small batteries there. In the case of the Model 3, I believe the number is in that 3,000 to 3,500 range. The problem, though, is when you store in those metal containers of batteries, there's a lot of weight associated with it that LG's batteries do not. So carrying that weight around can consume range, and Tesla seems to have been able to manage this trade-off well. But the biggest issue there obviously is how well is thermal management handled within that discussion, and that's why Tesla is willing to live with the extra weight. So there's a lurking question right now, which is LG going to be able to lower costs by using less metal, as well as get performance parameters that Tesla can't? And so it's our belief, just as you just said, Jerry, there's issues that happen with those pouches, of issues you don't have to deal with. So one of the big question marks right now is, as there are owners of e-trons and other competitors emerging with these batteries from LG, how does this play out in terms of the finished product and how good it is or bad it is, and what our customer experience is like short and long term? The early returns are, I want to say, mediocre, because one of the items that came up was the 200-mile range e-tron was experiencing range of as little as 30 to 60 miles. I want to say kilometers, but it's actually 30 to 60 miles when at or near freezing, which is an issue you're not having with the Teslas. There is some decline in range, but nothing like that. So I can really see why the Mercedes and Porsches of the world are rolling out slowly, so that they can have enough testing done so they can predict in certain circumstances, how their vehicles are going to perform and not oversell or undersell customers in the process. So, one of the interesting side notes to be noted here. I find out about Halbach. I don't know what Halbach is, Gareth, but I appreciate your bringing up the question. I'll have to do research on it. If you've posed questions that weren't answered while the show was going, feel free to put them in as questions at the bottom, because other viewers may have an answer that I don't. Happy to sort of go through those iterations as you guys recommend. As we close out today, I want to remind you, I'm about to do my 25 leg lifts with a 5-pound weight on each leg as a way to stabilize your quads and strengthen all around. Number 2, don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4 hours. Number 3, definitely a few hours a week, a couple of times a week of power walking is a great idea to keep the health effects up. We look forward to our Saturday show presentation this week, and you're getting a chance to join us. We'll working on some logistics for that right now. At any rate, look forward to any and all comments you might have, as well as show ideas and suggestion. Jonathan, you've mentioned a couple of times how much does it cost based on battery. One of the problems that's happening in the United States right now is the cost of electricity is different in every place. And I would assume that's the same around the world as well. So what's happening is that in places where electricity is very low in cost, people are electing to not get solar panels because they can just buy the electric cheaply for their cars. In places where you have very high cost electricity, folks are more inclined towards electric panels that would also fuel their cars. So I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but $30 to fill up a 300-mile range vehicle seems about what folks are experiencing. But as you pose that question, it'll be interesting to see what the response is that people might give at the end of the show regarding what costs are for filling up their vehicle depending on where they are in the country. Also, it'd be interesting to see what the supercharger price is for that as well. At any rate, once again, thanks for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German. Au revoir, French. Lehitraot, Hebrew. Ni hao ma, Chinese. Zdravstvuyte, Russian. What else? Khoda Hafez, Farsi. And in Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.